Welcome to another episode of Getting Real in the Field. And I am your host, JP Fluellen, and with Kekte. And this is the show where you get to learn about all the things that you hate to do, which is following up, making phone calls, calling back, making notes, using your CRM to its fullest, and just overall just sitting in front of your computer and going on and on and on calling your clients. And speaking of clients, we're talking about internet leads today, aren't we today, Keck?
Absolutely, absolutely. And at least I have to add, they may hate calling, they may hate sitting behind the desk doing their CRM, but they're here listening to us.
Yes, because they know that they're going to get those little nuggets of knowledge. And we're just going to go ahead and just crack that open and just drop that knowledge right in there. And so today we're going to help you make wise choices when it comes to lead generation and what lead sources are good, which ones are okay, which ones are good about new agents. And it's it's low hanging fruit, right? So
Yep.
A lot of agents really like to try to find those shortcuts, and rather than trying to weed through the sea of lead generation, or doing the networking, or knocking on doors and all that kind of stuff. So today we're going to talk specifically about one lead source, which is realtor.com. And so I do have a little bit of experience in this. I did realtor.com for about 4 years. And so kind of the history there is that realtor.com used to be owned by Realtor NAR, I believe.
Oh, really? That part I did not know. I do have one quick comment though, JP, just before, not to interrupt, but
Sure.
I want our audience to know that, our goal for these reviews that we're doing right now is really to kind of give it as much as an unbiased but personal perspective. You heard last week we did one on in a lead source, and you should check it out in our video series if you haven't. But we wanted you guys to know, each from a realtor's perspective, the pros and cons of it. So, it may work for you, it may not. So, but this is just our experience that we're trying to get other people's opinions and kind of share with you an unbiased view of it. Right. So
yeah, think of this as like back in the day, it was like Cisco and Ebert, they would watch a movie.
That's
and then
right.
Use,
Wait,
so we could do thumbs up or thumbs down. I'll be Cisco, you can be Ebert. Or was it the other way around? Who is the big guy versus the little guy?
I think Ebert is the big guy.
I don't remember. Yeah, well, we could be Bert and Ernie of the review space.
I want to be Ernie.
There you go. All right, I'll be Bert.
Okay.
I could do my good Bert and Ernie impersonation, but I won't right now. Hey, Bert. Okay. So kind of going back to
the history of realtor.com.
The history of realtor.com. So I believe now, someone is going to listen to this and be like, that is not true. I saw their wiki on this, but it used to be owned by NAR. And then they got into the lead gen space. And actually, when I first got into real estate, I had actually started with realtor.com leads. And then I did that. And that's actually what really launched my lead gen and the discovery of internet leads. And back in the day, it was super cheap. Like, I think I started off with 80 or 90 bucks a month. And the leads were really good. It was, I think they did the leads based off of zip codes, of course. But then it was just purely a lead. It was a lead number type algorithm. It wasn't like based off of views. And I think because But as it grew, they couldn't really track. uh the tracking got a little interesting, so it was based on an algorithm. We
Yeah.
have so many views and stuff, and so that was how they would decide how many people they would sign up versus just a pure lead generation.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah.
So what I did was I would just, the first month I'd start off with 100, 150, and then I would double my spend, and then I would just continue to double my spend. And I was having some ridiculous success. It was great. I think I was closing 50 to 60% of the leads that were coming through, just because they were that good. And and before, and at the same time I was using a different lead source, and we'll talk about that at a different podcast. But then it got to a point where you start generating so many leads you can't keep track. You can't keep up with them. It was just really hard to if integrate. It was purely email. So I'd have to watch my emails 24/7, and when a lead comes in, just like everything else out there, you have to call those leads right away. There was some statistics out there years ago where it was like you have up to 5 minutes to call a lead, or they're on to the next person.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
now like it's basically 1 to 2 minutes is what you have before they're like, oh, well, they don't want to talk to me, I'm on to the next person. And part of the challenge too is that because there's so many sites out there now, with homes.com, .loop bought homes.com. And so they're really trying to make a big splash in the realtor residential space. And they put a thing out there which is kind of interesting, where if it's your listing, your lead. So they're really trying to make this push, and they're free. They're not even charging for that. It's crazy. So we may do a deep dive into that, into
Yeah.
the
That would
next
be super
generation of
interesting.
homes.com and what's going on over in that space. But then a company move.com
Yep.
purchased realtor.com. And this was probably, I want to say, this was probably right around 2012-ish is when they bought realtor.com, the rights to it.
Got it.
And so they've been managing realtor.com. And I want to say it's been about 3 years now. They purchased OpCity.
Yep.
Before it was just OpCity was kind of like, like partner with us, cost your people nothing, and then you just
Right. And you
get signed
pay.
up, and then you just pay on the back end.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but OpCity it was pretty aggressive, so they were basically like, our lead, if we send you a lead, you have to pay us referrals on those leads for life. I don't know of any agents that are actually doing that. However, that's part of their service contract, is
This
that,
is with this is with OpCity.
yeah. And it goes even further than that. If you get a referral from a lead that you get, you have to pay OpCity too. So if Jimmy comes in from OpCity and Jimmy says, well, you should work with my sister Joni, and then you can work with both of us, Jimmy and Joni, and then we can, um, or Josie, and Josie has pussycats, and so, we then you owe us a referral on the whole family.
So Josie and the Pussycats, we all have
Yeah,
to.
Josie and the Pussycats, you got to pay referrals on.
Wow. And is it
So
35%
yeah,
of those, or is it less?
35%. Yeah. Yeah. Crazy.
Holy macro.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's their play, is that, if you work with us, we're going to provide you your own ecosystem of leads, essentially.
Yep.
So that's
Yep.
the thought process.
But they also, like, and if I don't know if you remember this, but when you're first starting out, you always have to always follow up, and same mantra though, and it's an innovative way, I would say. They first test you out when you first come in, and they would kind of say, you got to follow up with all those leads, and you got to keep track within their CRM, their platform, right? And then kind of say, hey, oh, yes, I follow up with them. These are my notes, and you can keep checking. And if you do a good job checking, then they'll give you better leads,
Right,
right? So
right.
it's kind of like paid to play. They're training you as like a little good agent should be, kind of Pavlovian theory. It's like I ring the bell, you better keep track of those follow up those leads, and then if you do so, I reward you with better leads, kind of thing, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's so it was like every 8 days, I believe you had to put a note in there. So you had to call them every 8 days, put a note, and then it would reset the cycle.
Yeah.
Um where it came problematic was when you had too many and you've called them several times and they're just junky, just you know, and so then they would ding you if you called them, and then they're like, well, these are non-responsive. They're not calling me back. I'm not getting any results from these leads. And so then they would ding you for that. And then eventually, you would get the leads. And what they would do is they would force leads through. So like, so even though you may have been on the bad list or whatever, they
Yeah.
would force a lead through because no one would take it because, someone's trying to buy, you know, a trailer for cash and,
Right, right,
it's
right. Yeah.
listed for 150,000. They only have 25,000, and
Yeah.
then, but there's a live person on the line.
So
So
realtor.com and OpCity are tied at the hips together.
yeah, so
But
yeah, so realtor.com bought OpCity and I believe they're changing the name to something else. I can't remember what they said they were going to change the name to, like Realtor Connect or something like that, or it was something that I'm like, anyway, so there was that. So like I said, Realtor was really good in the beginning. So for me, when they started doing these shared leads, so what they would do is they'd say, oh, well, you can buy shared leads, and it's about half price of non-shared leads. And I believe they called it like flex versus I don't know, there was like two F words. Um and
okay.
um so in the beginning I was doing the shared leads because I could get more zip codes faster. And they're just like, well, if you're just quicker on the phones, you can accept those leads a lot faster. I don't think you're going to have an issue because of, just you just got to be a better agent.
Yeah. Makes
So
sense. I mean, it makes sense, but
yeah,
it's annoying.
so it was great, in the beginning. But I think what was happening was they were continuing to overshare the leads. So, because then what was happening is I was getting a very consistent call, and this probably happened, gosh, in the last year and a half, where I was using the realtor.com leads to send out to my agents, because I could get them, they were lower hanging fruit, was cheaper. And then my agents were starting to complain that every single lead, no matter what, they'd already say, I'd already talked to an agent. So now that got to me to start to think that it was more than just two other agents. It was a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Because statistically speaking, like if you're quick enough, like you should be able to get contact to some leads, but it was literally starting to get to there was no contact. And some of my best agents on my team were complaining that they weren't able to get a hold of any realtor.com agent, leads.
Wow.
So, I had a pretty hefty ad spend. I was spending a good chunk of money a month, and it just got to a point where I felt like I was just flushing that money down the toilet. And I actually tracked all my leads coming in for a year, and it was a negative ROI.
Gotcha.
So
That's actually a good tip that, and by the way, that you're tracking and kind of tracking the ROI on those two.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went back and we audited the entire year, what lead source they came from, and all of that stuff. And and then I compared that to some of my others where I was getting 88% return on my money. And so I was like, okay, well, that just,
Yeah.
doesn't even make sense to continue with that. However, you're locked in for a year. So I had to continue to pay until they expired. And so then I told them, to flag all of my leads to expire them out. after my time was up. And so they so I'm down to, I think I have just a couple of zip codes left that are timing out next month. Just because it was just not worth what I was spending. I was not getting the ROI, you
Okay.
know. And here's what the crazy part was, is I went and then they gave me all the addresses of all of the homes that closed. And they're like, well, we see here in our database that 50% of of these have closed. And so then I went through the MLS and audited every single one of those addresses.
Yeah.
And they sure did close, but they were not with us. So that's when I knew they were sharing the leads with way too many real estate agents.
Okay. So this is interesting. You had a great experience with them in the beginning, and then the last couple of years, that's when it's gone downhill since the acquisition. Then, um, any pros?
I would say the pros were, if you're a solo agent, they do a really good job of uh sending you the information about the lead, what property they're looking at. If you use the realtor app, you can just, when the lead comes in, you can just push the button and it'll dial back the call for you right away.
Yeah.
So there's a few little things like that. um
Any reasonable like startup? Like if you're a single agent, like how what are you looking to spend? I guess, or is it just however many leads you want?
No, it's not however many leads you are. If you're a brand new agent, the biggest, probably the biggest plus side to any lead source is to get a strategic partnership with a lender in place to help
Okay.
share the cost on that.
Okay.
Um, so that way, if the leads are good or bad or indifferent, if you're sending your lender deals, then then it helps share the cost of that. So then it's a non-issue if you get a ton of bad leads,
Yeah.
because you've created that strategic partnership to help grow your bottom line. And then, and so there's that. I mean, also, the realtor.com name,
It's
definitely
huge. Yep.
helps push your name out there,
Yep.
and I think if you're getting reviews through realtor.com, it'll also help get some organic stuff coming through.
Okay.
So I think there's some pluses there.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like some pluses,
Um,
but if you're like competing for those leads, that's the
if you're
biggest
gonna
selling.
do it, do the non-shared, spend the extra cash, get the non-shared leads, you know, and try to find the lowest hanging, zip codes, the outskirts of town, because a lot of times you can pick up those ones for really cheap. And then in service, you might have to drive 20-30 minutes to get some of those leads, or depending on where you're at, you might have to drive, an hour or so.
Yeah.
But picking the non-popular zip codes is definitely a good way of building a good database.
Okay.
Um, and then just the basics, no matter what you're paying for leads, no matter what source they come from, you still got to call, you still got to
Got
follow
it.
up, you
Yep.
got to work your CRM. If you have AI built into your system, then you want to use your AI to its fullest. If you got ISAs, all the things, you know if you're going to go to war, you want to have multiple options, rather than going there and you realize you brought a knife to a gunfight and you're like, crap, I can't, I don't have a machine gun, and then you're screwed,
Yeah. Yeah.
because if you work your business, the business will work for you, and
True.
so that's all you got to do, is just be consistent, make your phone calls, be a employee of your own business,
Yeah.
and it will work for you. And it does. And I always say this too, like, there's no bad leads, there's just bad follow-up, you
Fair
know.
enough. I mean, I think you make a really good point. So there you have it, folks. Like, you know, realtor.com, you've heard JP's initial success with it, and the switch, obviously, he's kind of left realtor.com, but there are some merits still to kind of using realtor.com, as long as you should pay for the higher end service if you really want to. But if it's too expensive, then go for outskirts of the areas that they cover for you. Um, But the ultimate, I mean, it's a lead source. It's just a lead source. But the ultimate message, I think you hit it on the point. It's all about the follow up, right? If you do no matter how many leads you get and so forth, but if you don't do the follow up with through your CRM or through an ISA, or you doing the cold calling, or you don't have time and you want to use, some sort of a platform like even an AI platform like ours, that's the follow up that you need to be doing if you want to close the deal, right?
Yep.
Any other tips that I'm missing? I like it. This is great.
No, I don't. I think that covers the gamut. If you guys want to know what's, more and go more in depth on, how to choose the right lead sources and, get the most ROI on that, you can always book a call with me. You can reach me at 307-772-1184, or you can find me on the Google machine. Just type in JP Fluellen, and it's spelt just like it sounds. Fluellen. And what's going on in your world, Keck?
Come and talk to me. My world is all about the AI platform and doing lead management, which is really a fancy word for a platform that's powered by AI to do all the follow-ups, doing all the things that you hate with cold calling, follow-ups, and just nurturing your clients, man, nurturing your leads. That's what our AI does. So check us out at fieldnotes.ai. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can reach out to me at 425-740-0260.
Awesome. Well, that concludes another episode of Getting Real in the Field. We'll catch you guys on. Oh, wait, before I close, make sure you subscribe, smash that alert button, share this with a friend that you know is going to need this today in their life, and make a comment below. And we'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.
Awesome. Peace.